Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio. Westchester Talk Radio, produced by Sharc Creative, WestchesterTalkRadio.com. I'm John Marino, and we are made possible by people like Robeson Oil, the house that service built, by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco, and by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth through a fiduciary standard. Coming up in early November, it'll be the annual Westchester Sports Hall-of-Fame induction ceremonies at the Glen Island Harbor Club in New Rochelle. Among the inductees that night, we welcome to the class of 2022, Ric Beardsley. Ric Beardsley, one-time championship lacrosse player at Lakeland High School in Shrub Oak off Route 6, right near the Jefferson Valley Mall on the southbound side of the Taconic State Parkway off the Route 6 exit, to be exact. Ric Beardsley, I remember my early days being involved with the Westchester sports community from back in the late 80s, and one of our first Con Edison Weekly Student Athlete Sports Award winners of the week when I got involved with the Con Ed program back in 1989 was you back in the early 90s. Been a long time. It's gone by fast. You've had quite an accomplished career. How did you get involved with lacrosse in the Lakeland community, even though I kind of know that if you live in a place like Lakeland, like John J. East Fishkill School District up in Dutchess County, in, may I say, Yorktown, you're kind of born with a lacrosse stick in your hands, right?
Yeah, well, the real story is that I had the Sigelski family, one of my teammates, Gary Sigelski, very accomplished lacrosse player in his own right in college and in high school. He had a gazillion brothers. And I was always at the corner there with the Sigelskis. We played football, we played basketball, and there was a stick on the ground. And Tommy Sigelski just said, "Hey, Rick, do you know what that is?" I said, "It's a lacrosse stick." He's like, "You want me to teach you how to throw with it?" And I went ahead and did that. And it was from day one. And, you know, the biggest thing that got me going was a guy by the name of Dan Reardon. My mother was a swimmer. My sister was a swimmer. So I swam at the Shrub Oak Swim Club. And painfully, I didn't want to do it. And Dan Reardon was an All-American who went to Hobart and he's a John Jay guy. And my mom, he was like, you know, Rick's real big. He should be a defenseman. And my mother, Angela Beardsley, who had died when I was in high school of cancer, unfortunately, she was huge into contact sports. I grew up with a mom who was in a street gang in New Rochelle. And my mom was not per se someone who was skittish about her son being in contact sports. So I was able to, you know, pick up the stick, and I guess I was athletic enough. I was always big. And then I started, just like you said, right? You mentioned that it was a hotbed. I had great coaching. So I was able to be around all these awesome lacrosse players. I went to the Nelson Brothers lacrosse camp. You know, I had the Sigelskis around the corner. I had Coach Vitola, Coach Connor. I had so many influences that were great coaches. So I couldn't help but be good at it.
Mm-hmm. Now, lacrosse to me is a combination. I'll tell you this, back in the early 90s, too, I was at the JV Mall, and I grew up in Manhattan and the Bronx. We didn't play lacrosse there. I was in the sporting goods store outside of Sears, if you remember the old sporting goods store outside Sears. And what did I see there? I said, "Oh, lacrosse." I picked up a lacrosse stick, and I started to run around the store for about 5 minutes or so. I said, "Gee, I wish I had played this sport growing up, and if I had to do it all over again, I certainly would." To me, lacrosse is like a combination of baseball, football, basketball, hockey, and soccer all wrapped into one, and you get to do it all the sports as one big sport on the lacrosse field. At least that's the way it is to me. Is it kind of like that to lacrosse players too? You're carrying the ball around, you got the stick and you got the net, you're carrying the ball around there. It's kind of like a baseball bat, and it's kind of like carrying a football, or you're dribbling a basketball. It's like a hockey stick there too. And, you got to run as you do in soccer also. To me, it's everything wrapped into one. And that's one of the great things about this sport.
Yeah, I mean, I was a multiple sport athlete, so I obviously had a pretty good football career. I was all county 2 years and all state a few years. And my father was a football, baseball, basketball guy at Edison Tech in Mount Vernon. My mother was a softball player at Rochelle High School growing up. So they knew nothing about it. But what they did know how to do was teach a kid who had let a kid go per se, who was very, I guess, ADHD, OCD, all those things combined, and very energetic, as I still am now, I think. And lacrosse is a combination of all those sports, so it played perfect in the off season, right? It has the speed and the footwork of basketball, soccer, hockey. The amount of reps, the amount of tight shooting that you would have in a hockey game, and the physicality to a point which football has. Really lucky that it just blended into the type of person I was. People always have asked me, John, Rick, what were you really? Were you big? Were you strong? Were you fast? I always just said I was enough in all of it, right? Mm-hmm. I never wowed you with size. I never wowed you with strength. I never wowed you with speed. But that blended really well, and also I'm going to say it, and it's kind of a terrible thing to say. I tended to get in a lot of fights when I was younger, and lacrosse tended to be an awesome outlet for me. I tend to do well in those contact sports situations with my attitude and my sense of lack of fear, or maybe that's stupidity. Who the heck knows? But it lended well to the way I grew up. And lacrosse in that area, in our day, there was 20 of us in that Lakeland Yorktown game in 1991. And 20 of us went to Division I schools. And I don't think there's a place that can say one town, we're talking one town, had that many guys in 1 year play on a field when we played Lakeland Yorktown, and 8 of us went on to be world teamers. And then, obviously Roy Colsey's in the Hall of Fame. I just spoke to him about 10 minutes ago, actually. So I was just really lucky, and it was a sport that everybody had their sticks in their hands or in their cars or on their bikes. And so you had an opportunity to play all the time.
How difficult was it the first time you picked up a stick and you saw you had to be able to cradle a pass, to pull it right into the netting there? And I'm always impressed to this day how players run around the field, and I get to do public address at a lot of high school events, every sport around Westchester, Section 1 and around the tri-state area. I'm always impressed, especially you get above 287, and it's kind of like lacrosse is king during the fall, along with football, of course, above 287, and lacrosse is getting out there and becoming more of a go-to sport below 287 now in White Plains, Larchmont, Mamaroneck, Harrison. Yep. It's been growing a number of years. But to me, the first thing you got to learn is how to pick up that stick, handle it the right way, and catch that pass in the netting and make it look seamless. Like you got your eyes closed, but you can still make that catch behind your back. How difficult was that to pick up?
That's a long time ago. I'm 49. I'll be honest, I don't think it was so difficult for me. I'm going to be, it's not an arrogant statement. I think I'm probably like everybody else that's really athletic, right? But to excel at it, to be able to run with it, take the hits, be able to use both hands, go behind your back, be creative. And at the level of lacrosse we were challenged to play when we were young, obviously that helps your learning curve. But yeah, you can get weeded out, and I've seen guys get weeded out. And not everybody is a Division I lacrosse player, but there's always a place for someone. That's the greatest thing about this game. It's that it, any shape or size can play it. Right now, in Division I, guys are 6'2", 6'3", 210, 215. Midfielders are 6'1", 195. D guys are, I would probably be a good sized midfielder, in my career. But, I think I was lucky enough to be around good people, and I got good quick, right? Because you're going out shooting with good guys. You either shit or get off the pot. Oh, sorry. But it's just the way it works.
Mm-hmm. Ric Beardsley was way back when, 30 years ago, 2-time high school All-American at Lakeland High School in northern Westchester, a 4-time All-American championship lacrosse player at Syracuse University. What was the difference? Athletes talk about the difference of going from high school to college, or as somebody who came out of Section 1, great football star a few years back said to me, said, John, he said, the thing is, you're the best player at what you do in Section 1. You could be the best in New York State, and you get to college and you got 100 at a big school and big name program. You got 120 guys on the team. And the first thing you have to realize is that you may have been the best at your position in your hometown, but the other 119 guys on the team with you, they were the best in their hometowns at their respective positions. And they really don't care, especially if you come from a state that plays football only 3 months a year from New York State. You're going to play with guys who play year-round from California, from Texas, places like that. They don't care that you came out of New York and that. You really got to prove it to them who you are, what you're about, and why maybe you weren't Mr. New York State football. In lacrosse, is it pretty much the same way? You're playing with those best players from wherever on your team at Syracuse, for example. The other guys were the best in their hometowns where they came from?
Yeah, I mean, my first day of practice, I'll be completely honest with you, I've never been beat for more goals in my life, one-on-one. I always laugh that I say that I've played with so many, future Hall of Famers against players of the year, obviously playing at that level at Syracuse, but in practice was the most difficult time. So like my freshman year, I had an attack of Matt Ryder, Jamie Archer, and Tom Marachek. Tom Marachek was the eventual attackman of the year in 1992. Jamie Archer was an All-American in 92. Matt Ryder was an All-American in 92. And then the eventual attackman of the year in 1993. So I played two attackman of the year guys of my first day of practice. And, I had Roy Colsey, that Hall of Fame, that midline was a Hall of Fame in 1994. Guys that, Dom Finn from Yorktown, Roy Colsey, and Charlie, there's 3 Hall of Famers I played with. So there was a pretty tough go at it in practice. And, the biggest difference, if I could tell someone, is everybody's bigger, faster, and stronger. And that's so cliche, but the game is quicker. The game becomes more violent. And you have to have this versus this. Mm-hmm. People think that the physicality, there's not many guys that jump off the page physically that can't handle. Like I can push around in my prime, I can push around a 6'5" guy, 230-pound guy, 240-pound guy. There wasn't, there are not many 270-pound guys playing lacrosse in those days, and there's not any now. But my point is, I could push them around because I was there for a reason. I was strong enough, and you had to be able to play the quick guys, the strong guys. So the biggest thing I think was up here. I think you had to have superior intellect, a way to deal with confidence and frustrations. And it was really all in your head when you got older. But again, if you can handle the fact that the game's a little more violent, your body gets a little beat up. But, I had an athletic director who's like my father. This guy, he's up here. His name's Buddy Wiklinski, and he's the athletic director at CBA. He's in New York State Basketball Hall of Fame. And he was an awesome role model because he would say to me, "Hey, Rick, you know what? Like, this kid's a Division I lacrosse player, Division I hoops player, Division I football player. He's that level of an athlete. It's what he chooses to do with it and how he chooses to be developed." And my point for that was he had the physical size to do all those things. And I was lucky. I had that physical size at that point, and I was able to excel, like you said, to get, to be one of those guys in the town. By the way, in our town, I was just one of so many. And right. And I'm the one here being honored, and it's, in a way, it's awesome for me, and in a way, it's kind of crazy. Rob Rizzo told me I'm the first lacrosse player inducted in the Westchester County Sports Hall-of-Fame. I take a lot of pride in that, but I just think about all those that were before me and after me, how great they are, and hopefully this opens up and we start getting more lacrosse players in on the women's side and the men's side. So yeah. So to answer your question, I tend to elaborate a little bit.
No, it's elaborate as much as you like.
Yeah, it's a bigger, faster. The difference in college is everybody's the man. It's who has it mentally and who doesn't, because everybody's going to have it physically. You're not on Syracuse's roster unless you're a 4 or 5 star person athletically. It's whether you mentally can handle that. And I'm one of those guys. Maybe I'm a mental midget off the field, but I can tell you on the field, I'm a freaking mental giant. So I was pretty, because I can still play with these young kids at almost 50 with all my injuries. I mean, heck, I'm going to a chiropractor in a couple hours to get my hip worked on. And it's just, life happens, but I wouldn't trade my career. I wouldn't trade my first day of practice getting beat 100 times and for anything in the world, because it really, lacrosse and being at Syracuse at that level has helped me develop in life to learn how to overcome and conquer. And that really is the best part about having, the mental aspects of the game down.
Mm-hmm. Bottom line, does it come down to you just telling yourself, I'm not getting beat today?
Yes. I mean, I'll be frank with you. I didn't think that anyone could run by me because of me. I mean, because of them. Like, I was so much better, I thought, when I got on a field, like, hey, he scored a goal on me, but I made 10 mistakes. You know what I mean? I made 10 mistakes. There's nothing that's not on him being better than me. It's because I made the mistake. I made a stupid check. I didn't approach correctly. It was just that arrogance, confidence, whatever you want to call it. We all have it. And that swagger, but I really, I didn't think anybody beat me ever. Because they were better than me. And I still to this day don't think it, even with the young kids. If I'm playing against a Division I All-American, and I did, over the course of the summer several times, who's 20 years old and in his prime, and I'm well out of my prime, and I get beat, which, by the way, I didn't. I just want to let you know. But if I did get beat, it would be because of me. It's because of, me, not him. Him being better than me, no way. But I still have that attitude, which is freaky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like my father used to tell me on the basketball courts. It's funny when somebody's getting by you, how your elbows just seem to appear.
Oh, you grow a lot of things. Listen, I will, say this. When coaching, right? Coaching is really interesting because I had to have someone tell me, Rick, they're not you. So you can't expect them to do the things you do, but you can expect them to play as hard as you did, because you can control that effort. You can't control the ability. So I've grown, and I had a good, like I said, I had a great father in Fred Beardsley, the late Fred Beardsley, who he was awesome. My dad was great because he made you tough. I mean, I remember him saying, maybe that generation's different. I mean, my wife is an ex-Olympic swimmer and, world champion swimmer at Tennessee. And Tori's won 1 million national championships, 1 million world champion games, you name it. My wife's a freak. And she's so hard on the kids, on our girls. And I have to take a back seat to it. But the one thing I can say is my girls are so tough, right? They're tough kids. I don't worry about them if stuff were to go haywire, right? Physically. Now, mentally, everybody has that. But I was just really tough physically because of my dad. I remember him telling me in football, he's like, why'd you hit that guy low? I'll never forget that. I was in Peekskill in a scrimmage, and he was reffing the game because my father was the head of Section 1 football officials for 10 years of his 30 years of reffing. And he said, why'd you hit that kid low? I was like, Dad, well, he's a good-sized kid. I figured take his legs out. He's like, he got 4 more yards because you hit him low, dove over you. He's like, and you wrapped up, he fell 4 yards. Goes, don't ever hit anybody low. I don't care how big they are. Again, they're never going to run you over. You hit them helmet to helmet. You don't go in there like a P word. And I was like, wow, that's the first time Fred Beardsley ever got after me about stuff like that. And unfortunately, I threw my body as high into everybody as I could in those days, I guess. And I guess that, I realized that I wasn't going to die every time I hit somebody. I wasn't afraid. And I think that helped break that fear. And, it's all about fear and failure, right? We're all driven by that. And the fear to make a mistake is what I think helped me get over the hump. And I also had Frank Vitola. My high school coach is a legend.
Right.
He let me be who I was to a point. And then I get here to Roy Simmons because I live in Syracuse right now, obviously. So I get to Roy Simmons, and he's the most free spirit. He understood that you could make mistakes. So, I was just, like I said, I go back to it a million times, man. I'm just really fortunate. Everybody says, you're self-made. No one's self-made in life. I don't believe that. I think you had help along the way. And I just had a lot of good help and good guidance and good advice. And my kids, and I was made tough, and my kids are tough. And thank God they are, because it's not getting that tough these days.
1992, you were captain of the World Championship USA Under-19 team. What was that experience like?
Oh, that was great. The only experience that sucked about it, I'm going to be frank, and it sucked, it was in Hempstead, New York. So everybody went to like Australia. The team went, and we go to Hempstead. It's like, come on, I can't get out of New York here to take a trip. I've never been anywhere. I make this team. I'm the captain of it along with a few other great guys. And, but what was special about it was all of my family got a chance to come watch me win a world championship along with my fellow teammates, who a lot of those guys I played against in previous years, in future years. And it was awesome. So, to be a captain, to be chosen, to have that honor, to amongst your peers who are some of the greatest players in your grad year or 2 grad years, was a special honor. I think that showed, it's first time, by the way, John, I've never had anybody ask me that question. And it's the first time I ever thought right now that I might've been a decent leader. Maybe that's why I've had success as a coach. Maybe that's why I've had success at work. Maybe that's why I've had success managing people. I had good leadership qualities. And I guess that got seen. Wow.
Mm-hmm. And now you did, obviously, you moved into coaching. You coach now. You've coached for a long time, but you played professional lacrosse in the early days of pro lacrosse in this country for 6 years. Who did you play for, and what was that like? Because now you're above college with the very best players in the world.
Oh yeah, and the first league was an indoor league, right? It was called the MILL Major Indoor Lacrosse League. I played for the New York Saints. I knew a lot of the guys I played with, right? But you had guys that were 15, 16. They were 30 years old. You're 23,
right? A lot of local guys from the tri-state area.
So there was a lot of Long Island guys. I was one of those guys that lived in New Jersey, and I traveled over, and it was interesting because I was a long stick. It was all short sticks. It was in a way awesome because I didn't know the rules of the game. The game was so insane. It was indoors. You got a lot of reps. I'm playing with a short stick. You're getting cross-checked here, getting killed here, and you're fighting a guy, and the next thing you know, you're setting pick. And that's really how it went. It was so chaotic, but it was awesome to be in that league, to play with legends, future legends of the sport. And then that turned into the NLL. I got transferred for a job here to Syracuse, and I played for the Syracuse Smash. And that was still just crazy. But you played against all these elite guys from Canada, from the Iroquois Nationals, as well as the States. And that was it was like a boom, an epiphany. And I played club for one of the best club teams in the country, Team Toyota, where I played with the Gate brothers. Another fellow defenseman, Steve Kisslinger, is one of the best there ever was in Westchester County. I had 10 Hall of Famers, Mark Millen, Tom Marachek. I had so many guys. And then, so that club league was like our pro. And then MLL came out, and that was Body by Jake and a few other guys that started that, Jake Steinfeld, and I was 28. I was aging in my life, and I hadn't picked up a stick really, just summer leagues and things like that. And that was awesome. But I can tell you this, the pay was brutal. I made $175 a game when I first started. I
heard you guys weren't getting paid much.
No, and by the way, I'd have done it for free. People are so full of it when they say, oh, I need this. Listen, there was no one making a living off of professional lacrosse as just the sport back then. I remember tolls cost me $11 over the bridges, and I had to get a hotel because I couldn't drive back because obviously went out after the games. And I would lose money each game. But like I said, it was great. I played a lot of years, and then I played for Philadelphia. I got let go. I lost a car in a flash flood. Just like you said, anybody had money and jobs and that, and I couldn't make practice. So they cut me after like 2 games because I just couldn't make things. And then pro leagues came out outdoor, and I played a year training for my second year and tore my first Achilles tendon. So my career, I will never take back. Do I wish I lived in the tri-state area? That's what I think kind of killed my career. I wasn't living there where you are right now. So I wasn't playing in all those leagues all the time. We had a competitive league here in upstate, but I was the best defenseman by far in the competitive league. And I was one of the best defensemen by far if I was down there at that time. But you just didn't get a chance to play as much as you would have then, right? Mm-hmm. So my career, that was that. And when I tore this first Achilles, I was engaged to Tori, and that kind of ended my life. But playing professional lacrosse with all the guys I see now that are legends, that are getting into Hall of Fames, it was just the greatest thing in the world that I ever did. And I was, again, really lucky and fortunate to have been able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's interesting you brought up the Iroquois connection. Lacrosse was originally played by the Iroquois Nation back in the day, as we call it today, and the sport grew from there.
Yeah, I mean, they call it the medicine game. I watched an interesting thing yesterday when obviously it was 9/11, and a friend of mine, Ben Camino, is on the board of City Lax, and they do a lot of tributes to the 9/11 victims. And he was telling his story online. It got featured on the History Channel. And Ben is one of our assistants now at Bergen Catholic. He lives in New Jersey. I get goosebumps talking about it because he talked about when it went down and what had happened. And he basically, the gist of the story is the tower, he got out of the tower one and started running and didn't stop running. And he had loafers on with no socks, and he had blisters all over himself. And he ran into a guy who was just another guy that he never knew. And they went into his hotel, they went into his apartment. He gave Ben a pair of sneakers and said, "Hey man, just don't worry about it. Just take the pair of sneakers, get yourself home, get yourself safe. Don't worry about it." Never got his name, never got anything. And all of a sudden they're at Randall's Island doing a clinic. And the guy taps Ben on the shoulder and says, "Do you remember me?" And it was the most amazing story that, that's what lacrosse did. He called it the healing game. And that's what it was for the Native Americans. And they gave us that sport, which indeed I think is an incredible gift to all of us that are now inhabitants of the United States. And, Ben's story really made a lot of sense when you bring up what lacrosse can mean and what lacrosse can do and how they thought of lacrosse. And it is, the origin. And living down the street from the Onondaga Nation, I've obviously been around it a lot in my career. I used to play box lacrosse on the Nation. It was one of the very few, white Americans that were allowed. I can tell you this, you certainly got in a lot of fights because they didn't like you being there. And, but the game is, Ben mentioned it's healed me a million times, from my mother being sick with cancer just before my season, my freshman year, to my father getting cancer. And it was the only thing that could take my mind off it. It was off my parents and the sickness and all the things of life. And when I crossed that line, so I do believe that it was put here for a reason, and it is the medicine game. But that's my story. And I'm sure there's thousands of others that have that, the way lacrosse has affected them. And lacrosse, look at me here. I'm in a Hall of Fame. I got clinics that make me money. I'm coaching at a great high school. I've been able to coach in the past. I've coached in the Premier Lacrosse League. So many things that my career has done, all because of a stick and a ball.
Mm-hmm. Ric Beardsley, Lakeland and Syracuse lacrosse legend, Lakeland High School, Syracuse University. He'll be inducted into the Westchester Sports Hall-of-Fame in early November. Tell us about that coaching career. You've been a championship coach. How did you move into coaching? And tell us what you're doing now coaching-wise. You're coming down from Syracuse to Bergen Catholic in the neighborhood in North Jersey, not far from my old stomping grounds. Even current stomping grounds, when I get the opportunity now, across Routes 4 and 17, right around the malls there, Garden State Plaza, Paramus Mall, and Bergen Town Center.
Which is where I was when I spoke to you the other day.
Did you go to Sabaro's, by the way?
No, I didn't. I'm low carb. I got to lose weight for this.
Okay,
for this ceremony we have.
It's not Sabaro's anymore, actually, when they changed them all around.
If I had just meatballs, I'd have just meatballs. I got to go low carb. But I started, I was lucky enough that I started coaching. Coach Vitola had me in the youth, doing youth stuff when I was younger. And when I moved to Syracuse, I kind of reffed, and I just, people didn't really know who I was because I hadn't lived there. And I kind of just started reffing, and then, I ran into one dad. He's like, you know what you're doing? Like, did you play? I'm like, yeah, I played at Syracuse. And he's like, oh. Then it was from there, I started coaching some clinics, some teams, some clubs. And then a buddy of mine, Steve Carcaterra, fellow he's a Yorktown guy, a year older than me, convinced me to come down to New Jersey, down in the Rumson area. He was living there at the time and still does, and convinced me to do a Sunday clinic. I'll never forget it.
Down on the Jersey Shore, right, Rumson?
Yep. And he said in Monmouth and Ocean County. He said, Rick, I said, Steve, I'll do this, no problem. I said, all I need really is just to pay for my gas. It'll be good. I haven't done this in forever. It'd be great. Well, we had 200 kids, and it turned out to make some money for myself. And I really enjoyed it. It wasn't about the money. Like, money's great in coaching when you want it to be, and it's also bad. And it just kind of got me a passion. And then the job at CBA opened up here in Syracuse. And I knew some of the people, and I had a pretty impressive resume, I guess. And Buddy Luklinski, like I said, the AD gave me a shot. Brother Joe, who's not there anymore, he's retired, gave me a shot. And, my personality came out a little bit. I'm not sure that I didn't get in trouble a few times for some selective things that I said, but I had success really quick. And I think, I won a state championship with CBA. We beat Westlake
Christian Brothers Academy.
Yeah. So I was, that was fun for me, right? I got to play against the section. There was a lot of, the newspapers down there loved it because I'm a former, superstar down there coaching against the team for their first ever state titles for both teams. And I had a really great group of kids and a great group of parents. And lacrosse and coaching, I tell you right now, I don't care, all the listeners, you do not do a great job in coaching, and I'll look dead at the camera, unless you have a supportive wife. That is the truth. My wife, Tori, gave me that opportunity, and I saw her during the year 20 seconds a day. How funny is, and that people really, they're gonna be listening. Really? No. Tori's a teacher in Marcellus. She would get up at 5 a.m. I'd still be in bed. If I got up, I got in her way. She would give me a kiss goodbye. That's literally 4 seconds. And then I would come home at 10 o'clock because we practiced late at CBA or at film or at Scout. And I would give her a kiss goodnight and sleep on the couch. I literally saw my wife at points 10 seconds a day. And you can't do that and have a successful marriage without someone who was an athlete. So that was a big part of the enjoyment of it. And then as the girls got older, Angela is 16 and Viviana is 12. They were around it so much. They've become accomplished lacrosse players themselves. They learned the sport. They were around athletics. They were around high-level guys. I've had a lot of high-level guys I've coached. Obviously, my friends I talk to are some of the elite lacrosse players in the world. I can pick up the phone and call so many guys that people can't call. I can get advice coaching. So I went to CBA for 9 years, ran into a massive parent issue, and I just wouldn't take it. It wasn't very supported, and I jetted. I'll be honest, worst thing I think I ever did in my life, first thing I ever quit. And I was certainly angry about quitting. And then I said I'd be a dad for a while. Angela's at IMG Academy down in Florida playing lacrosse. And this spring, I was first time in my life. I went down and watched her play. Sat there for 2 months in Sarasota. I got a chance to watch her play varsity as well the year before. And then this Bergen Catholic job opened up, John. And I looked at Tori and I said, hey, Tori, this is a chance to do something for our family, right? Get them to an area where I grew up, a place that you love, a place that there's more people, more things you can do, more culture, get them used to what society can be like when they're older. So they're prepared when they are parents or when they're on their own without us. And Brendan McGovern and John and Brian Mahoney, who's a Mayapack guy, gave me that opportunity. He's the president of Bergen Catholic. He played at Siena. I've known him since we were young. And I interviewed, and here I am. And it's going to be a crazy ride for a little while, right? Tori is a public school teacher still living here in Syracuse. I am president in Syracuse right now. But I will be moving to Oradell in March and staying the whole year away from my family. I mean, that whole season, which is not a problem. I'm gone all the time anyway. Probably helps my marriage at this point, John, right? So that is an opportunity that I had, and I foresee myself being at Bergen Catholic, knock on wood, a long time. I think there's such, obviously in every sport, they're a powerhouse nationally. Football, without saying, basketball with what Brian Armstrong's doing, wrestling, baseball, golf, all those things. So it's, it's just one of those things. So I got into coaching, and I was telling the AD today, man, John, I love coaching because it keeps you young, and it's awesome to help kids. People think I'm good at it. So, hey, I'm going to keep doing it until someone tells me I suck, right? So, and probably there'll be 500 people that'll tell me I suck, because the one thing I've learned is the longer you coach, the more enemies you make. That is a sad part of it, but the impact you have on kids is so long lasting, you don't have a clue.
Another famous coach comes from Oradell, New Jersey, where you are going to. His name is Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells says about any team, any sport, you are what your record says you are, regardless of what you think. For example, I see the Jets. Before we sat down to talk, I was reading all the Jets post-game comments from yesterday, and everybody's saying, we got a good team here. And no, we're not the same old Jets, just you watch and see. All I saw on Sunday in game one was same old Jets. Sounds like Bill Parcells is right.
Yeah, well, I'm a Jet fan, born and raised. My father was one of the first 5,000 season ticket holders.
Wow.
When they went from the Jets to the Titans. Mm-hmm. He got a job at Con Ed when he was 20. Boom, got the tickets. I had grown up going to Jets games. I unfortunately live in Bills territory right now, and a lot of the kids on my team, I've asked them, Jets or Giants, and they're all like the Giants. A lot of them like New England, but Bill Parcells is certainly the most famous coach from Oradell. I know that Ric Beardsley is not even a blip on the radar from Oradell. I know that, the Vito Campanale.
You will be.
I hope to be. It's a tough act to follow with a lot of the great high school coaches that are there. And it's going to be a fun ride. I have good kids. We got a lot of culture changes we have to do, but we'll get bigger, faster, stronger, and hopefully we'll compete. And I'll take the record from you are what your record says, from being a loser to a winner. So I don't want to be a loser. I don't think my wife will allow that. If you want to know the truth, Tori is more competitive than I'll ever be. She has screamed at me numerous times. Oh, my wife has screamed at me numerous times about not working hard enough. Why are you home? What the hell are you doing? You're going to waste this. And I think Tori's either scared me into the work ethic or said as a reminder. And, for that, I'm hoping I can, Coach Parcells, if you want to stop by good old 1017 Woodland Ave, give me some pointers. I'm all there, man. Happy to buy you whatever you need. There's some great steakhouses, and I'm happy to pay.
Yeah, I think you learned under the legendary Mickey Cochran from Oradell, too, way back when, who was his mentor. Ric Beardsley, we thank you for being with us here on Westchester Talk Radio. Congratulations on your upcoming induction into the Westchester Sports Hall-of-Fame. It's a long time coming, well-deserved. I've followed your career since you were a young man at Lakeland High School back in the late 80s and early 1990s. Again, congratulations to you. And you did come up with the true cream of the lacrosse crop at that time in northern Westchester and throughout the Hudson Valley sections 1 and 9 at that time. And I think you guys and the guys on Long Island at St. Anthony's, at places like Ward Melville High School on Long Island, Farmingdale, Bethpage, All of you guys from back then set the standard about the sport of lacrosse, what it is, what it should be, and what it's turned into today. And we have to thank you for that.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be part of this year's class. And I'd like to really quick thank all those that helped me along the way. And thanks for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. Enjoyed it very much. And as I always said, it's Westchester, the best Chester, and no other.
And our old friend Larry Jansen, too, right? Who you play basketball for.
Yeah, coach. He's the man. I coach. Thanks for, putting up for the dual sport athlete and not cutting me and letting me on the team a few times.
He was a tough guy, right? Tough coach.
Very tough coach, but he was demanding. Tough and demanding are two different things, I guess. To me, demanding, he wasn't really, I don't know. I had Frank Vitola. I had Tribo. I had a lot of guys that, you didn't get out of line, but Coach Jensen certainly is a legend in his own right and did an awesome job at Lakeland.
Ric Beardsley, our congratulations to you again. In early November, you'll be inducted at the Glen Island Harbor Club in Rochelle into the Westchester Sports Hall-of-Fame class of 2022, along with renowned photojournalist Frank Becerra Jr. of the Journal News, championship Valhalla football coach, and he was a great amateur boxer and a pro boxing coach, too, for a long time. Ron Berlingo, and also to Tom Avezzano, who for 65 years has been over at the Sprain Lake Golf Course in Yonkers, and he's been the head pro there since 1975. Quite a class going in. And Rick, by the way, I hope this does pave the way for more lacrosse players, especially the guys from your generation, the guys you played for, with, and against coaches and players to make their way into the Hall of Fame as well, too. Thank you for being a trailblazer in the sport of lacrosse and more. Ric Beardsley here on Westchester Talk Radio. I'm John Marino. We are produced by Sharc Creative at westchestertalkradio.com. Made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, also by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco, and by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County talk radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube. Download our app. Take it with you 24/7. It's called Westchester Talk. And yes, we are now on Apple Podcasts, too.